All right. So the topic for today is going to be free training tools. Yes, it's that 4-letter word you all love. It's the 4-letter F word that we can say.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 368 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSP, and joining me is Donna Grindle, again, on location from Carton. Where in the world? I mean, you got Carmen San Diego. We got Donna Grindle. Where are you?
I will not be as interesting, I assure you.
I did watch a video the other day on OSINT stuff where they take a photo and they figure out where you are based on your photo. And it's not the normal stuff you would think of where you look at the information, that's inside the photo, that the camera puts in there. No, this was actually taking the photo for face value and then finding it using OSINT tools. It was very interesting.
Like the background and stuff?
Yeah, the background and things like that. It was very interesting, the things that are out there. And again, A lot of it open source, meaning free. Some of it was crazy. Like, I know about a lot of these things. Not saying I use a lot of them all the time, but I know about them. But there was quite a few that I was like, oh, I didn't know that was out there. How cool is that?
Well, I mean, that you can, even just take a picture of a street. It'll tell you where you are and what all the businesses are on it.
Mm-hmm.
Never done that.
Yep. Quite an interesting stuff. So
it's another reason I'm paranoid about everything.
Yep.
My friends say, why don't you get on Facebook?
Yeah. I was at an event with a bunch of professionals, and some of them were business owners, but most of them were local professionals. And we had taken a tour of the state capitol. I may have told this story, but we took a tour of the state capitol. And they wanted to take a picture of everybody. And so they took a picture of all of us standing on the steps of the state capitol. When the picture came back, guess who's the only one that's not looking at the camera?
You.
Me. Like looking at the person beside me, probably because I was saying something stupid. Mm-hmm. But, and so this guy like trying to make fun of me. And he's like, oh my gosh, look, you're the only dummy not looking at the camera. And I said, if you knew what I knew about facial recognition, you never look directly at the camera. And then, he's like, oh, so I guess the other 49 of us are idiots, not you.
Yes, that's my point exactly.
I was like, that's exactly what I'm saying. So all you guys will get hacked, but me.
People. And you know what? We can every now and then where I'll start something like that, that's proven to be hacked and all this. You'll see people around me that know me go, wait a minute. We all believe you.
I know. Isn't that so much fun?
Well, you don't listen to me half the time when I have to, until I'm making stuff up, I don't know for sure if you're listening.
All right, so now we're going to get into our HIPAA Say What segment. A couple weeks ago, we dropped some information on 11 cases that came out about patient right of access. And what do you want to highlight on this, Donna?
Well, when we start talking about those things, I always say, so you should audit what you're doing to make sure you're not going to get in trouble on these things. And everybody's like, so what do I audit? And I'm like, oh, you want that part too. So here is, in a very general way, what we recommend that you do is you pick a week. It needs to be over 30 days ago so that you can track things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to look at all of the the release of information requests that came in and all the release of information that was supplied that week. So all the inbound, all the outbound. all the communication and documentation that week. And so the idea is you can track back and forward for everything that happened if you're that far out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to ask is, you pull all that information, and you may even have to, get an even more narrow random number. You may have, if you do 500 a week, that might be a little bit much to audit, unless you're only going to do it once a year, and then you got to do the math on that. But pick some random ones. Pick a day or 2 days, something like that. And you track just whatever happened on that day. What came in, who are we talking to? And you want to know, was it complicated for the patient? Did they have to make their request twice? Did we tell them any misinformation? How quickly did we respond? How did we make sure that we were confirming that we were talking to the patient or a personal representative? How did we calculate what we charged them, if we charged them anything, so that we could prove they were acceptable fees? Did a patient request a form or format that we couldn't provide? How did we handle that? Is that coming up enough that we should figure out how to handle it, or should we educate the patients on the front end? Those kind of things. And then, of course, the number of days that it took from initial request, to the patient receiving everything, and did they receive exactly what they asked for, the complete record. They didn't have to come back and ask for it. Those are a few things. If you sit and look at your policies and procedures, you should go through and look for all of those things that you say you're going to do and make sure you're doing it.
All righty. I think that was a little more than people wanted to do, but okay.
Look. Ask for my advice, you get it.
Everything's complicated. Speaking of complexity, let's roll into our 405D tip of the week, because we're going to make things not complex with 405D.
Yeah, so the 405D tip of the week is there's going to be 405D stuff to go with the stuff we're going to talk about in a
minute. That's easy enough.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's due out at the end of this year. We've got our annual, October Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I love when I get speaking gigs during Cybersecurity Awareness Month, because I love to go in and say, you have me here because it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and everybody looks at you, crickets.
Yeah, what?
But no, we didn't know it was Cybersecurity Awareness Month, but thanks for telling us. But
yeah, no coincidence that it also happens to be the month of Halloween.
Yeah, really? Which we've got to start planning for. Anyway, so there are many things that are all coming out around the time of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So to get people prepared to use all the tools and the information and resources, we want you to start thinking about and planning about it today.
Mm-hmm.
So keep in mind that as things are released by 405D, we'll be sharing those with you. We already do that. In fact, one of the topics here, National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, is something that we've already just released out of 405D. So we're ready to talk about the big thing today, David.
All right. So the topic for today is going to be free training tools. Yes. It's that 4-letter word you all love. It's the 4-letter F word that we can say.
Yes. I would like for you to give me that for free. Do you want me to, be homeless? Is that what you want? Because I don't ask for a lot. No, that's the way I go with it. But
just write it off as a donation.
Yeah. What we starting here with, because there is so much, and the fall is the time to get this training done, and you're already out there running around doing stuff. So I suggest that you might as well get her done now. And they're doing something different with Cybersecurity Awareness Month this year, which could be very helpful in implementing some of the things that need to be done up in here.
Okay. What might that be?
Well, normally they do, here's our theme, and then each week has its own theme.
Right.
And, they drill down further. Well, this time they're saying, we're going to do, it's easy to stay safe online, which I struggle with, but okay, it's marketing.
Yeah.
But they're focusing on behaviors. If you will do these 4 behaviors that they'll focus on throughout the month, then, that if you did this, you would be much more likely to be safe online.
Oh, okay.
And they are not wrong. So I figured we could run through them real quick and explain how you could use the things that are coming out here and otherwise for building this into your own implementation and training. What do you think, David?
I think it's a good idea. So explain, Lucy.
Well, first, we have one that is near and dear to our heart that we are always interested in, enabling multi-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm. Just did that today.
Security's not convenient. We know that. But it needs to work. And I don't get it. I don't understand it. But getting people to turn on the multi-factor authentication, that used to be, you could be head and shoulders above everybody else. Well, now if you're not doing that, you're drowning. You're drowning soon if you don't have it on all your important stuff. Because I get people all the time that are like, "Hey, this is telling me I need to do this code," and I'm like, "Don't. Did you ask for it? Back away from the code."
Yeah, there's this new thing now I read about, I think last week, where criminals are bombarding your MFA application so that you're getting, hit with all these emails or text messages or whatever. Now, this is assuming that's how you had that set up. But what they're hoping for is that you'll get so annoyed with it that you'll finally just click allow or whatever it is so that it allows it to come through. Mm-hmm. So, and not every application does that, but some will do that. Like Google sometimes will do that where it prompts me for a yes or no. This is you trying to get in, or LastPass will prompt me and say, approve or deny this request. And so that's one of the techniques they're doing, is they're trying just to aggravate people to the point of where they just finally click approve to get it to
like
stop.
brute force MFA.
Yeah.
Like, I already have your password. That's why you're getting these.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're getting those, that means go change your password.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that, like anything, when MFA is talked about, oftentimes some people tell you it's this, or at least they make it sound like it's the silver bullet. Like if you've got MFA, you ain't got nothing to worry about. You and I both know that's not true.
No.
It is very, very difficult to hack, but it is not difficult to hack the human that is getting the MFA code. So when somebody calls you from fill in the blank and they're like, "I'm here to help you out. I'm going to have a code sent to your phone and you give me that code and I'll be able to help you."
Wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people, used to be, I would say, I read about people that do that. Now I personally know people that have done that. And it blows my mind, but I get it. The complexity of cybersecurity is moving much faster than the average person's ability to understand the threat.
Okay. So basically you're saying we have got to either educate people or cut them off.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to institute some type of federal licensing to get online, but I don't think it's going to happen.
No, we're not going to have that kind of control, are we?
Well, I don't really mean that, but what I'm saying is for most of our listeners, this is not an issue, but I see it with people all around me that they use computers, they use smart devices, but they are not in our world. They don't understand these risks. They understand maybe what risks were 10 years ago. That as long as you had an antivirus program, you were good. That's all you needed. This stuff of social engineering, I run into people all the time today, even that they don't even, I say social engineering, they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You and I throw that around like we're talking about peanut butter and jelly. They're looking at me like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Peanut butter and jelly. That's good. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it is, but you know what? We got here because people learned what things like Google meant and how to use a mouse, and it can be learned.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what we have to focus on, is getting people past the, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I just had to laugh. I actually remember the first time I started to use a mouse on a computer. I'm like, what does this thing do?
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that they'd turn it around because the tail should go off the table and they turn them around. And, the number of times that I had to go and teach somebody to use a mouse, it was exciting, cutting edge stuff back then, people. And then, oh my God, they got the little wiggly thing on the IBM ThinkPads.
Yeah, they still have them.
The red dots.
Yeah,
those little Lenovo and trackpads.
I used to hate it when I was in IT support back in the day, and somebody would call me and they would say, my mouse is not working. It's like all jittery. I need to buy a new mouse. And I would always drop my head. I would always drop my head and say, have you removed the mouse's ball? Clean the rollers. Yes. And almost every time they would be like, okay, stop pranking me for real.
Yeah. Stop messing with me. Yeah. There was a lot of humor that went around about that back when memes were distributed on little 3.5 floppies. There was a really good one with Donald Duck telling you how to do that. Anyway,
now I'm not going to get that out of my head because I remember it too.
You know what I'm talking about,
yeah,
right?
I do. Unfortunately, I do.
That was cutting edge stuff, people. All right. But the big thing is encouraging people to implement multi-factor authentication is on everybody's risk management plan. If it is not already in process, which it should be, you better get on board soon. Like, I don't know, maybe this fall. That'd be a good time. Mm-hmm. So you could do the education here and then plan the implementation to start, when everybody get it implemented before everybody's traveling for the holidays, which is a huge time for these things, these cyber attacks to happen. So highly recommend that you get to train people that it is not a luxury item to use multi-factor authentication, and moving right along, you're going to need it on things that are important, especially.
Mm-hmm.
But the best way to make that less painful is the next one, the next habit or hygiene.
Well, this is kind of a twofer, right?
Right.
And I still have problems from people with it. Even within IT, there's arguments about this.
Yep.
So number 2 is using strong passwords and a password manager. Well, there is a constant debate on strong passwords.
Yes.
Constant debate. There's a constant debate on how often to change your passwords. And now there's
even blurting out in the middle of you talking. My bad.
And now there's even, arguments about password managers. And of course, the funny thing is with passwordless stuff coming, I'm like, this is nothing new. I got people that hadn't used passwords in years. They've been passwordless.
Well, we know we're never going to get fully rid of it until everything's biometric, and then we're going to have a whole new list of problems. But let's not go there. But, you and I started trying to tell people, look, the NIST guidelines changed years ago, and people are finally hearing that message. Hallelujah.
Mm-hmm.
And with that in mind, though, we need people who are writing the code that verifies the security, the passwords are strong enough to change the algorithms they're using so that we could use some of these newer understood security things. Because we've come a long way, and we have studied extensively that whoever came up with the idea that you had to have, something like 3 special characters, uppercase, lowercase, and a number, and if you had 8 of those, then you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't true.
Mm-hmm.
And we now know that really better off. Granted, you have to still meet the requirements. I don't know about you, David, but every now and then you'll run across a site that limits the length of your password. That's more annoying to me than making me do all of the upper and lower stuff.
Yeah, it is. But the passwords are, I don't know. I don't get it. The password manager thing is the next thing. I was on, I think, Facebook not a week or so ago. And, most people have these local groups that they're in on Facebook. So this local group, somebody asked a question. It wasn't an IT group. This is just a local people. And somebody said, I'm trying to find a password manager, put all my passwords in. Does anybody have one that you recommend? And boy, if you've never asked that question on Facebook, you should.
Okay, what were they saying? Tell me.
So quite a number of people write them down in books. One lady was so proud that she puts hers inside of an Excel spreadsheet and she locks it with a password, which
is nothing.
Which I didn't have the heart to tell her that hacking through an Excel password is pretty easy.
Yeah.
It just, on and on. And of course, none of these measures that other people take are really security at all. But it was amazing. And then some people were talking.
In?
No, I didn't even chime in because I just felt like I was, I was outside of my element. Nobody was asking for my opinion.
And you don't want to wander in there because then you're going to have one or two things happen. Always when you wander in, just to answer a question to be nice.
Yeah.
One, you're going to have the guy that knows more than anybody else. He's maybe a ex-plumber, something, and I worked with computers and I did, but your basic hobbyist, right? But they spend a ton of time, and I'm not saying they don't know about things. I'm just saying that's not what they do all day, every day in dealing with what's the best thing for telling consumers and others. They're going to try to make sure they let you know they know more than you.
Yeah.
Which I'm not ready to engage.
Right. And I had a guy that confronted me like that one time, and he's like, I was IT supervisor at a bank. And I'm like, oh, then you should know something about security then. And I said, but he's an older fella. And I'm like, how long ago did you work at the bank? Oh, I've been retired for 20 years. I'm like, okay.
Oh, man.
Never mind.
Do you know how much stuff has changed in 20 years?
That's almost
just in 10.
Yeah, that's almost pre-internet. But anyway, okay, so you were saying 2 things happen. That was one. What's the other one?
The other one will be suddenly you're going to get everybody reaching out to you for computer help.
Yeah. Or the person who treats your advice as if you're being malicious.
Oh, yeah. So, anyway, you didn't go into it. But no. For the most part, what we need people to get today is that having a really long one that's not super complicated is, in most cases, better. And So for an example, I ran one through on, some of these tests, and, here's an example of one that you could remember. So always remember to buy milk on Monday.
There you go.
Always remember, and then the number 2, buy, and then milk is all uppercase. On Monday, uppercase, Mondays, and exclamation point.
See, I like to put characters, whatever you want to call them, periods, exclamation point, whatever they call them.
In the middle.
I like to put them between the words. And so I'll do that, and I'll put period, exclamation point, hashtag, whatever. I try not to make them all the same. I mean, if some people do that, it'd be word dot, word dot, word dot.
Yeah, no.
I
might take the milk and make the I be an exclamation point.
Mm-hmm.
But it's easier for most people to just think of it as a sentence. But if it is a series of words like that, always remember to buy milk on Monday, and, throw a 2 in there and a capital letter somewhere. And you don't have to do 15, just 1.
Yep.
I actually now have gotten to the point where I'm setting a complex password. I'll go to my mobile device to see because my complex password for the most part is going to be my password manager. Mm-hmm. So I go to see what's the easiest one that I can use, like with that theme, where I would make the upper and lower case once I came up with always remember to buy milk. So it'd be faster on my mobile device. It's always fast. But I did run that through a test and do a decillion, 23 duodecillion years to crack it if you used always remember to buy milk on Monday the way I had typed it. That is a 23 followed by 39 years for a computer to crack it. Right, so that's what we have to get people used to doing so that it's not super complicated and you don't have to change them every 90 days. But until we can do ones like that, and we're never going to get it everywhere, password managers let you have a really complicated one like that with a proper 2-factor, and then everything else gets stored in the password.
Yep. And if you can't figure out your own, then just Google passphrase creator or passphrase generator. Not password, passphrase, and it'll give you these different ones. You can pick like how many words you want in it and all that. So, like for LastPass, it's got a password generator in it, but not a passphrase generator. So I hope they add that functionality at some point. But
so we both use LastPass. We always have, and still not affiliated with them. I don't know why.
No,
we're just not smart that way.
But I'm gonna sell you a license.
Yeah.
I am a reseller, just not an affiliate.
Yeah, but I don't sell it. So anyway, the thing is that they have the ones for small business where it includes the employees could have their own account, which they do have free ones or very reasonably priced ones, family-based accounts where you can share things and track things. On the business one, your employees get their own account. They can put their own stuff in there and connect it to the work one so that you don't get their stuff all mixed up in it and them wanting to have access to everything once they're no longer employed. You also could, there's a lot of different ways you could do this to share these passwords and let the password generator create them so that you just remember your login and the multi-factor setup on it. But please make sure that when you set these up, there are all kinds of options for dealing with forgetting your password and accessing an emergency and losing your 2FA. When you set it up, set that up at the same time.
Yeah.
Please. And then don't go write it down in a book that your LastPass password is something else. Password keeper.
That's true. All right. So number 3, this sounds like it's easy. I mean, it's 2 words, but this is not easy for most people. So the third one is updating software. Now, this is a very complex thing that people don't realize most of the time, because updating software is not as simple as necessarily just updating software. And then they don't even know what software they have. And then they're also not considering what other things runs off software that they didn't realize had software.
Yeah, there you go. So they do have a whole thing trying to explain it. So again, it's important that we keep saying everybody's on the cybersecurity team now. They're on the cybersecurity team for themselves. All of these things, if we teach them to do them for themselves and at work, we're better off. Everybody wins. So the updating the software 405D just came out with one that's for the large, small, medium, and large entities, talking about updating software. But you need to also keep the computer that makes phone calls updated. You need to keep your, I go and check even my Roomba to make sure it's got up-to-date software. My smart TVs are monitored. I go check them, and it doesn't matter. All of them, like you say, have software, and they should maintain updates. But don't be playing around and think that I'll wait until everybody else is up and running, and then I'll know it's okay. No, your configuration may not be okay. First and foremost, and if there is any doubt in your mind and that thing's been out more than a day or two, load it. Unless you know what to look for, you need the updates.
Yep. So another interesting statistic that I read over the weekend is that it takes hackers. Let me give you a little bit of a background. So when something has a critical vulnerability or just a vulnerability in no matter what kind it is, they were tracking how long does it take for these vulnerabilities to start getting hit online. So that from the time that they get released publicly till people are trying to get into them. You want to take a guess? Do you know?
Seconds, probably.
Almost, but 15 minutes on average. 15 minutes from the time a vulnerability is released, it is being exploited. So, you got these folks like, oh, it's only been out of date for a few weeks. 15 minutes, folks.
Yep. You don't have the luxury of waiting like you used to. You just don't.
No.
It's moving too fast. So you need to understand what you have. You need to understand that it's not just the computers that run software that need to be up to date. And you need to know how to update them.
Yeah.
Just assuming they're being updated because they're on auto may not actually be happening.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they'll do an update that you have to go through and approve things before it goes through. Any litany.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about medical devices and things like that, oftentimes you don't know that even though you bought a medical device, you also bought a Windows computer.
Right.
It's sitting inside that device somewhere.
And that's why you need to stay on top of those vendors. You just got to stay on top of them to know, okay, what updates? How do I secure this thing? What are your recommendations? So on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So staying up to date. And then our final habit, and like I said, all of these are things we should do individually as well as at work. So the final thing, recognizing and reporting phishing. So, we're all getting pretty good at the recognizing phishing, but they're getting better at sending it.
Yes.
But it is also important that if you do recognize it, submit it to, mark it as spam. Depending on who your email is with, if you mark it as spam, then they can try to stop the proliferation.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, and this is one of those things too, where you're talking about reporting phishing. First of all, organizations need to have a way, and if we're talking organizations, not personal, but you need to have a way of reporting it. So what do you expect people to do when they report these phishing? And then what actions need to be taken? Some organizations, you have what they call it, the groundhog effect or so, whatever. Everybody's head's popping up.
The gopher effect.
Yeah, the gopher. Yeah, everybody's popping up. Did you do that? Did you? So we have that in our organization. I'll get a message at least once a week. I get a message from somebody. Did you send this to me? Did you send this to me? Even when and sometimes I trick them because I'll create a new account for them on some new tool that we have. And so I know it's going to send them an email saying, you've got an account that's been created, go set it up. And I want to make sure that they're messaging me going, did you send this to me? Is this? I had one guy, I was like, I need you to create this account. I sent this over to you a couple weeks ago. He's like, man, I deleted that thing. I was like, I sent it to you like 6 times. He said, I deleted it 6 times.
Yeah. Get with it, boss. Which way do you want me to be?
No, that's what I want him to do.
Yeah.
I want him to delete it. And that's when when your people are paranoid about clicking and opening things, that's when you're good.
Yeah. Well, and after we attacked them last year, they still haven't gotten over it. So.
No, they haven't.
But testing with phishing, staying on top of it, and didn't you have one where we could finish with the story you sent me where I'm like, where you just sent me this week of how many layers? You know what I'm talking about now?
The CPA client?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a CPA client of ours. They got a phishing email and they reported it. They did what they supposed to do. They sent it to IT. And so we checked it out. And oftentimes when people send these, it's usually like, it's obviously phishing. Don't click on it. Or sometimes it's something that's just popping up on their screen for some reason. But anyway, in this one case, the CPA client, they wanted us to take a look at it. And first of all, the email was well written. So no more are they writing the emails where you're like, oh yeah, English is not your first language, is it? Mm-hmm. So it was well written. It was also targeting. Now, understand this is a one-person CPA firm. So, okay, targeted one-person company. Don't say I'm too small. People,
targeted, right? and be clear. Targeted meaning this was written specifically for them.
Yeah. So I hear this all the time. We're too small. People aren't going to target us. We might get caught up into some net, but people aren't specifically after us.
Right.
This was again, one person. Anyway, so it was a well-written email. There were links to documents that go to a legitimate website. And then here's the kicker. The zip file, within the zip file was 4 Java archive files that are JAR files, JAR files. Mm-hmm. But they're made to look like PDFs. And what the person did was they basically asked the accountant, they said, we need an accounting firm and we looked you up and we'd like to know if you would take us on as a client. Here's some of our financial information so you can give us a quote. And so one of the documents was like 1040 returns.pdf.jar. Well, in most cases, Windows will leave off that extension. So you don't know what type of file that it is. And so what the person would see is 1040 returns.pdf. And they won't see the .jar. And so they'll double click on it thinking they're opening a PDF. But what they really are doing is if he was to double click on it, it would automatically run the JavaScript that he clicked on.
Mm-hmm. And just because he ran the JavaScript does not mean that all the layers of security would have picked up on what it was doing. Because they layer it. Each of those 4 did something different.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And oftentimes, and we've had this happen before, where clients, luckily we have different security that blocks things. And we also have privilege access management that, prevents things. But we've had several times where clients have called us and said, I'm trying to install this thing and you keep blocking me. And I'm like, we're blocking you because it's malicious. Stop clicking on it. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that.
Don't fight with me about it.
I know. So, it's one of those things where you don't have time to necessarily call them right away to say, this is what's happening. You're just blocking it as quick as you can. But yeah, it's, people will jump through some amazing hoops to try to get infected.
But I need to load it. Microsoft's calling.
I know. I'm on the phone with they're already in my computer. I need to let them run this. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I called them for support. They were the first ones that came up.
Yeah.
On a Saturday afternoon when I needed printer support. That's a long story. Anyway. So all of that we just covered, there's training tools and resources that'll be available. Why not take that into account with your risk management planning to build off of this to say, okay, we're implementing these things. And if you have been implementing them, great time to retrain on why it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure until people are really, really comfortable and understand this, it's always going to be a thing that you need to remind them of, no matter what.
True. Yep. And, the good thing about it is this training is never going to go away. And whatever it is you trained them on today is going to be a little bit different next year. So, matter of fact, it'll probably be a little bit different in a few months. So don't look at this. And remember, too, we talk about this every so often. You're trying to create a culture within your organization of privacy and security. And you can't create a culture of anything if you're doing it once a year. So yes, we're coming up on Cybersecurity Awareness Month, but if that's the only time of the year you're talking about these things, then you're doing yourself and your business and your patients and everybody else a disservice.
See, so no matter where you are in the process, you can use this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? It's being created, readily available, and all nice and timed out. They've got everything from email examples, articles, social media, some graphics, some posters, everything you need to make a campaign.
Yeah.
So go forth and prosper.
But for those of you, and I know there are some out there, but there's some, those of you who don't value what you don't pay for, let me know and I'll send you an invoice for these free materials.
That's right.
All right, folks. That is our show for today. Thanks for listening. Remember, for Donna and myself, the HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.